close. They have a back door connect.
Your reaction, yeah, I didn't think about it until I was like, man, so I'll look, but.
Traffic.
I don't think that's the problem.
Yeah.
Really, I go, yeah, really, I think. I know cars.
Traffic there. It's like. It's like, wow, yeah, it really does put you on a 5-lane highway.
Everybody's ready to go. I believe we have a quorum. We'll go ahead and call to order the May 1st, 2024 meeting of the Transportation Coordinating Committee. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
Change.
But-
Under item 3A, Tom asked about the MTA amendment, not the RTA amendment. So change the R to an M.
Any other comments on the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, like sign. And I'll abstain. I was not here for that meeting, so I'll abstain. Next item on the agenda is the opportunity for public comment. At this time, I'll open the floor to any member of the public who wishes to make a comment related to anything on the agenda or anything related to business coming before this body. I understand we had somebody that actually signed up last time and I missed it. So
I was gonna tease you about that. Say when I filled in, there was a public comment. Let's say just throwing that. I'm a little more approachable.
I guess so. Give me what it is. We have plenty of public comment in Sumner County, so I don't know. I don't think I discourage people.
I don't know.
At any rate, hearing none, I don't believe we have anybody wanting to make public comments, so I will close the public hearing. For the online meeting that we're doing, public comments can be emailed to comments@gnrc.org. I don't think I mentioned at the beginning that we do, this meeting is you can participate in it via Zoom as well. Next item on the agenda, we have an action item A, Transportation Improvement Program. I'll go ahead and introduce Shay Northfield, GNRC TIP Coordinator, to present proposed amendments to the FY 2023 to 2026 TIP. Okay.
Morning, everyone. So as a review, the TIP is a short-term work program that covers a 4-year span. It lists all regionally significant and federally funded transportation projects in our MPO area. It must be consistent with the Regional Transportation Plan and be fiscally constrained. The current TIP is fiscal year 2023 to 2026 and was adopted in November of 2022 and accounts for approximately $1.7 billion. And you can access an interactive map of all of our TIP projects at gnrc.org/TIP. So there are 4 amendments today, adding about $8 million in federal funds to the TIP. The amendments are available in your packet and we'll also have it on the TIP app on the screen. First is Sumner County's ADA Transition Plan implementation. This includes ADA improvements at pedestrian facilities, adds about $900,000 in federal sub-allocated Surface Transportation Block Grant USTBG funds for Nashville-Davidson urbanized area for the fiscal year 2024 NEPA design, right-of-way, and construction phase. This is to replace COVID relief or CRISA funds that were previously shifted off of this project due to the debt ceiling legislation that would have rescinded CRISA funds in spring 2023. This is the last CRISA-related amendment. We did receive additional information about this project this morning. Our plan is to process this amendment as it reads and then do an administrative modification for anything additional that needs to be, actions that need to be completed after. Next is Franklin's Murfreesboro Road traffic signal improvements, which will improve traffic operations at 13 signalized intersections along Murfreesboro Road. This adds near $425,000 in federal congestion mitigation air quality CMAQ funds made available by TDOT for the fiscal year 2024 construction phase. That these funds were previously programmed on the fiscal year 2020 to 2023 TIP. This also adds about $9,000 in local funds. Next is White House's Raymond Hirsch Parkway at US 31W pedestrian signal improvements, which includes pedestrian safety improvements at the titled intersection. This adds about $230,000 in federal LSTBG, so local STBG funds made available by TDOT for the fiscal year 2024 construction phase. And lastly is RTA's regional bus service operations. This adds near $6.5 million in federal CMAQ funds made available by TDOT for the fiscal year 2024 implementation phase. And I'll pass it back to the chair for any questions.
Do we have any questions or comments for staff? Sir.
On the Sumner County ADA transition plan, you said that you received some new information this morning. What's the nature of that new information?
Yeah, I can comment on that. There was a little bit of confusion on the local. There was a separate local line that was added to the project when the project was initiated on the past TIP. There was a little bit of confusion between GNRC staff and local staff on how to cover that. So we need to work through how to cover that amount, because initially the project was funded with 100% federal funds through CRISA. In addition to that, there was 128,675 in local funds. But since an additional local match was required through the STBG covering, there was just a little bit of confusion between us and staff on how that's going to be covered. So we just have to work through that internally.
Do you expect to have that resolved by the board meeting?
We're going to try to have it resolved by the board meeting, but if not, we can do an additional administrative modification outside of the amendment cycle because it falls below the threshold.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Are all these sidewalk improvements in one neighborhood?
Yeah, so the background on this one is this is a subdivision that it's in the unincorporated part of our county. But at one time it was under the planning and zoning jurisdiction of one of the cities. And so we took all that back over recently. And so when we did our ADA transition plan, it came to light. We had our consultant out doing our county engineer out doing measurements on a lot of these facilities. And these sidewalks came in at about 2 feet something wide. And so they're nowhere near ADA compliant. And so it was listed up toward the top of our ADA transition plan as something that we needed to address. So this project will in that particular neighborhood will upgrade all the sidewalks to, ADA compliant standards.
Part of the reason I ask is I know in Wilson County, like we have sidewalk requirements in our subdivision regulations, but they're seldom seen because our road commission kind of has a longstanding policy of not wanting the infrastructure in there right away for ADA liability and for ongoing maintenance cost. So it's a difference in county and city, I suppose. But
we still install sidewalks as part of our developments when they come through on some of them. But this is one, like I said, that it was that confusion between the city and the county over the years and whose standards apply and that kind of thing. This got built to a standard that just wasn't adequate. So
we get sidewalks, but they're generally off the right way.
I got you. Any other questions on those items that Shay presented? Hearing none, do we have a motion to endorse the TIP amendments?
Make the motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed, like sign. Hearing none, those TIP amendments stand as endorsed by the TCC. That moves us on to informational items. First one is a preview of the regional application for State Safe Streets for All grant program. I'll turn it over to Daniel Caparella for a staff presentation on this one.
All right. Thank you, Chair. So we've talked about this a couple times before. Melanie presented on this, however many meetings it was. But just as an overview, the Safe Streets for All grant program, I know many locals here today have probably received awards in past cycles, but it's a U.S. Department of Transportation program to prevent roadway deaths and serious injuries. This fiscal year 2024 cycle, there's additional funds added to the originally, I think was 400 million available for planning and demonstration grants. Now there's 650 million available in this current fiscal year cycle nationwide. The application deadlines are May 16th, so it's a little bit confusing, but there are two of them. First one is May 16th for plan and demonstration as well as implementation. And then there's an additional August 29th planning and demonstration grant deadline. That is the one that we are looking at regionally. So just so you're aware, staff is available to assist with not only identifying opportunities for this grant program. So if you have safety issues in your community that you think might need planning assistance or implementation assistance, we're happy to walk through that with you and or field questions through USDOT. We can also provide data and research, so safety data, crash data, any other data assistance that you might need to strengthen your application. As you put that forward, we can also provide a letter of support. So just let us know if that's something that you need. We'll get that done. In terms of a regional application, we're currently thinking through sort of a combination of supplemental planning activities. We've done some research on past awards that peer MPOs have received and have been encouraged by USDOT to submit an application since there's additional funding available this year. What that'll sort of look like, we're working through now that we'd like your feedback on are exactly what those activities could look like. So first could include a data collection and research activities that could be additional safety data through, one existing source might be Replica, which is a big data platform that we've presented on before that was funded through the COVID relief funds a couple of years ago. Another one could be enforcement research. We've received a lot of feedback from locals, especially police departments, that they want to understand, more information about what types of enforcement tactics could be more effective. Additionally, a regional quick build program. So essentially temporary infrastructure improvements to implement certain countermeasures. That could be lighting improvements, it could be crossing improvements, it could be any other sort of like pedestrian refuge islands, temporary improvements to improve safety on area roadways that are already unsafe that we know about through our safety research. Could also include striping as well. And then I'll walk through just a little bit of the enforcement research that we've already conducted internally. We've basically just been looking through past studies that looks at how investment in different enforcement tactics, those could include DUI checkpoints, speed traps, seatbelt enforcement, automated enforcement. I know you all, we've had a couple of really good conversations following the passage of the safety performance targets on, what types of issues that we're experiencing region-wide, how enforcement could help address some of those issues. So we've been looking into that and could be inclusion into our regional application to sort of further study that and come up with strategies for different communities in our region on how to tackle that. And then finally, we've got local crash data available. Ashley Glasscock on our research and analytics team has prepared county profiles for all 7 counties in our region. It also features local municipalities in each of those county profiles. It's got crash locations, statistics, rankings, statewide and region-wide. Those are available at gnrc.org/safety. So if you're interested in those, or if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Or if there's additional safety analysis you'd like to see for your community, please let us know. But with that, if you have any questions on our application or additional things to consider, please let us know.
Make a comment on Replica. Since we've had the luxury of having Sean Fowler as a fellow with us at Lighthouse, he's been able to put some science behind our capital projects. And it does a lot. I mean, I kind of looked at it after it was presented to us, but I encourage everybody to take a look at it and use Max and Daniel as resources. It's a good tool.
I was gonna say that I enjoy using the shared license we have, the opportunity to use the replica tool. Also like using the tool that TDOT has rolled out to us, the AASHTO safety aware. One thing I'll still continue to say though, and I've said this for several years now, is getting access, any kind of time we can get access to common data sources is great. Because one of the tools we've used in the past and still use is access to the Department of Safety's Titan database to actually get the physical crash reports. And I know it's actually it's a law enforcement database. It's very clear when you log into that, and it's controlled by your local, whoever's the highest law enforcement official. And some play nice with other officials, some don't. I think everybody knows whose law enforcement officials like to control that as their own little silo. But the biggest thing we get out of that versus being in safety and AASHTO safety aware or another piece of software like eTrims or something along those lines. And I don't know if, for those of you that haven't been in those very in depth, the data differs a little bit between those because of the way it counts the data. It can be different when the way you pull those sources, even though it's the same crash data that populates all those systems. It's interesting to get into Titan and actually pull what the officer wrote down as their narrative or get the crash diagram specifically the way the officer wrote it. That's one missing piece from all those other database platforms. It'd be interesting to somehow figure out a way to get those out of Titan into something else that's usable for engineers and planners, because we don't necessarily need the access to all the law enforcement portions of that. I don't care about all the personal information that's in there. That's what they're really trying to protect. I don't need access to a law enforcement database, I get that. I know why they're trying to protect that, but there's other sources of information that are extremely important that we don't have access to. That means more to us is what the report is actually written in there.
Jonathan, sorry for interrupting. Numerics and as to where is working on getting exactly that. The Titans report, just narrative.
Okay.
Instead of all the data. So I thought they were already working on it like 6 months ago. By now it might be pretty close to being put out.
That'd be great.
That's what they're working on.
There's actually one of the engineers in our office actually used to work in Utah, which is where they developed Numerics was based out of Utah, and the DOT version, because Numerics rolled out different versions of safety aware in different jurisdictions, and he said it was fairly advanced in out there. So
You might want to reach out to Jeff Murphy.
okay.
He's the point of contact for
Yeah,
AASHTO aware at TDOT. Yeah, he's in the safety department at TDOT. He might have an answer to that question.
Is there a dollar figure minimum that you need to apply for? And is there a match?
There is a 20% match required. We've been looking through different peer MPO applications. They range anywhere from 2 million to 7 million, but we don't have a number right now in terms of like what we would be applying for. We're still working through cost estimates and different parts of the application that, we're not exactly sure exactly how much it's going to be, but we can come back with those numbers.
Any other questions for Daniel? No. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next informational item. Preview of a major update to the RTP 2026 through 2050. Thank you.
All right. Some of you may remember this process. The last time we did this, it was almost entirely virtual. So we're excited to not be doing that this time. But the regional transportation plan, just as a review, it's a federally required plan. It's a long-range plan for all MPO areas across the country. Has to cover 20+ years and account for all federally funded and regionally significant projects, regardless of implementing agency. So all of our transit agencies, all of our local governments, as well as TDOT projects are included in this plan. Has to include a balanced budget, fiscally constrained by reasonable assumptions for future revenue. So we have to know how much this project costs and know that we have enough available to cover them. It also has to address 10 federal planning factors and national performance-based planning requirements. Probably familiar with our safety targets, with our system preservation targets, all of those activities that we do in between RTP updates. We also have requirements within the RTP update. And then it has to be updated every 5 years. So I'm going to walk you through just a really high level of what you can expect in the next 2 years in terms of that update and how we'll be expecting you to be involved. So as a review, this is our current adopted plan, adopted in February of 2021 by our area mayors and transportation officials, our policy board. It allocates $10.5 billion in federal formula funds and state transportation dollars for the region. It has an analysis of existing infrastructure and forecasted conditions, and it identifies strategies for addressing all of the issues in our region, including congestion, safety, freight movement, bike and pedestrian infrastructure. That's available on our website at gnrc.org/transportation. This is a snapshot of our MPO area projects by planning horizons. So we split those planning horizons on when we expect those projects to be going on and completed. So the short term is 2025 in sort of maroon color. 2035 is our midterm improvements. In the red color, and 2045 in the pink color is our long term. And then you can't see it as well on the screen, but in yellow are unfunded needs or illustrative priorities that we were not able to fund in the 2045 plan, but obviously can be submitted for additional funding through our call for projects in this upcoming plan update. This is our timeline for our major update. So Max and his team have already been working through base year conditions as well as the model development and forecasts, working through a couple of consultant activities to update existing data sources that we used in our last plan through technical studies and analysis. We'll be working through the policy framework later this year. That's basically just the goals and objectives that inform the plan. And then expect, and this is something you should probably put on your calendars. January of 2025 is when we'll begin and open our call for projects. So any existing needs that you have or future needs that you may want to be planning for projects in your community, that's when we'll be asking you to submit those for potential federal funding opportunities. And then in April, we'll be going through county workshops. Not only for your projects, but also for existing conditions and other activities related to the plan, which during that time we'll also be drafting the plan and prioritizing projects based on our evaluation. And then review and adoption is scheduled for early 2026. And then, of course, implementation and monitoring following that. That's all I have on the RTP, just an informational item, so I'll kick it back to you.
I think that's going to be a heavy lift. It always is. And so are you going to be the project manager on that?
We'll see.
Well, thank you for that information, Daniel. It's very informative. That takes us on to our regular reports. I believe the first on the agenda is Melanie Murphy, Federal Highway.
Thanks. A couple updates I wanted to provide. I know I think a couple meetings ago, we talked about the greenhouse gas performance measure requirement. Sure, y'all already heard, but I want to make sure we talk about that, address it here. End of March, the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas vacated that federal highway final rule, and it basically nullified it nationwide. So as of now, state DOTs and MPOs won't be required to set a GHG, greenhouse gas performance target. That might change in the future, but we don't have anything beyond right now. That's not required. So as information comes out, we'll be sure to communicate that. But we just don't really know what direction it's going to go as of now.
An appeal to the Supreme Court.
Don't know.
Somebody else to
Haven't heard of any next steps on that. So I think that's the question, is what direction we end up going with it. But yeah, as we have information, we'll make sure to communicate that. But that'll realistically be a while from now, I'd assume. Y'all know I'm always going to talk about new things available for funding. I don't think I've talked about the Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Program yet. No, there's so many, they start to run together, but $44.5 million available through this program. It's a brand new program focused on active transportation infrastructure investments. Or, two types of projects available, or two types of grants available: planning and design grants to develop action transformation plans, and then also actual, like kind of working on designing projects, and then construction grants to actually construct action transportation projects. Really trying to focus on transportation networks and then active transportation spines. So trying to connect maybe two cities, two places. Eligible applicants are state DOTs, NPOs, and local and regional governments. Applications for that are due June 17th. And this one I think is a good one to keep in mind if y'all are interested in the SS4A implementation grant, maybe don't have an action plan yet. I think there's a lot of overlap between these two programs. If y'all have kind of a safety project that maybe has those active transportation components, this might be a good opportunity to try to access some funds now versus when your action plan is in place. So just one to look at if y'all are kind of hoping to go for SS4A implementation, but you're maybe not ready yet. And then a brand new, another pilot program that came out is a transportation access pilot program. This is to support agencies in measuring regional or statewide access to important destinations, such as jobs, healthcare, childcare facilities, educational facilities, housing, food, all those things. And you're trying to make those connections between surface transportation modes. Eligible applicants for that include state DOTs and MPOs, and letters of interest for that are due June 7th. This is also a brand new program, part of IIJA. And then, of course, encouraging everyone to look at the SS4A. I know we talked about that one a lot, but encouraging folks to keep that one on your radar and apply for that one if you're interested. Go ahead.
So y'all may have talked about it last month, but my LinkedIn feed tells me that y'all have had some leadership changes or something over there. I don't know if y'all talked about it last month. What's the status right now? Is Sean running the show over there? What's going on?
So yeah, so Pam retired. So she retired as of March 31st. And then Hilberto, who's our deputy division administrator, he's the acting DA. Sean is the acting DDA, so acting Hilberto. And then I'm the acting Sean right now. But we expect to have they've already put out like the position, and I think it's already closed. So we expect to have new leadership or new DA. I don't know what the timeline will be, but sometime soonish. Yeah. So we'll definitely keep everyone in the loop on that. And I'm sure whoever it is, we'll bring them here so everyone can get to know them. Yeah.
Very exciting.
Thanks.
Anybody have any questions for Melanie? No? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the TDOT report. Mr. Morrison.
Thank you. Our 3-year plan was adopted by the General Assembly, and there was a correspondence that went out from the governor on that April 4th. So that information is on our website, and I think I also shared that PDF through Daniel as well. So you all should have received that. There's projects in all 95 counties, 63 major projects in 36 counties, including several here within the MPO. So any specific questions on that, please let us know. We've kicked off our planning grants within the MPO, two good projects there. The National Davidson County, the State Route 45 Old Hickory safety evaluation, and then in Lebanon, the State Route 26 corridor study. So both of those actually kicked off this week. So we're moving towards finalizing those scopes and budgets on those projects, and those are both set for about a 10 to 11 month project period. So those will be occurring and finishing up early next year. Daniel also reminded me about the small cities balance, that we had a question regarding that. Still trying to get all that information drafted and out to you all to address some questions that you all had regarding that. So I'm still pushing to get that to you also, so you can have that information as well. Any other questions for me, or if Daniel has any other updates from the department?
I'll just note that our multimodal access grant is currently open for kicking off this year. It's just the notice of intent phase. The notice of intent is due May 13th. It's not a big deal. It's just, I think, a 1-pager about where your project would be and a map that shows where you want to be. Then you can do some engineering and budgetary processes for the full application in June. But I would encourage everybody to take a look at that and go ahead and get your notice of intent. And if you want to apply for the multimodal access grant.
Is that still a 90-10 opportunity?
That's 90-10. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else from TDOT? Nothing, any questions for TDOT? No. Okay. Next item is the chair's report. I just had a couple things. I wanted to thank Jonathan, as I said earlier, for filling in for me last month. I had the doctor's appointment, couldn't be here, so I appreciate that. Also wanted to say thank you and good job. Congratulations to Michael Wood. We had the TAPA conference, the spring retreat in Fall Creek Falls a couple weeks ago. I thought that was an outstanding conference, very well done. And so, I mean, I think it really good classes, and hospitality room was well stocked. And so it was a good conference. So we appreciate you on that. And also, I think, again, my LinkedIn feed tells me that you may be moving over to Darth Vader territory.
That's right. I was just appointed interim town administrator for Thompson Station.
Congratulations on that, Michael. That's awesome. Let's see, and I think that's all I had. Yeah, that's all I had. That concludes my report. So I'll turn it over to staff for the staff report.
All right, I'm just gonna go a quick update on upcoming meetings, and I'll hand it over to Taylor to talk about the TIP status report. So May 15th, we'll have our Transportation Policy Board at the State Library and Archives. Well, it'll be a pretty similar agenda to this meeting. So we'll preview the regional application, SS4A, major updates to the RTP, amendments to the TIP, and then updates on regional activities. June 5th is our next Transportation Coordinating Committee, which will be here. And then June 26th is our regional council body. And that'll be also at the State Library and Archives, be a presentation of the fiscal year 2023 audit, adoption of the work program and budget, election of officers, and other updates. Our meetings are available online, gnrc.org/calendar. And then I will hand it over to Taylor.
Thank you, Daniel. Last few pages of your packet here is the status report. I'm going to walk you through it. You see it's to April 8th is the latest information we have. So probably before the TPB meeting, we'll have updated obligation information for the rest of April and May. As you can see, we have the elapsed time period of the TIPs, 18 months out of 48. So that's about 38% of the TIP period has elapsed, and we've obligated about 29%. So we've got about a 9% gap there between time passed and obligation rate. As you go further on down, the different figures, you see about 75% of our projects have been initiated. And you can see the breakdown on figure 2 of where they are in the certain phases of project development. And we get those from those receipts from the local programs office for the most part. Figure 3 and 4 obligations by using state funds. So we see they're about 32% of the fiscal year 24 funds. And then figure 4 is obligation for sub-allocated dollars. That's about a little under 1%. So we have a lot of opportunity for obligation there. So I know that there's some projects right now that are getting close to having, they're ready for some, especially some sub-allocated SPG, some large obligations. But just a reminder, as the summer goes on, TDOT, which local programs, start putting together a list of kind of planning for their obligations before the end of the federal fiscal year. So, excuse me, next month, we're going to talk about just some tricks and tips and things to get you all so you can be in a good place to get your projects able to get in before the end of the fiscal year, because typically once that fiscal year happens, you're going to have a little bit of a lag in obligations that after the beginning of October. So basically trying to get us to a good place to get obligations in before the end of the year. And then figure 5 is just the list of obligations for all the local managed projects in the area. And then lastly, figure 6 is funding opportunities. I will need to update it for, as Daniel talked about, notice of intent. So the very top of the list, multiple access grant, that's actually, but notice of intent will be May 13th, correct? And then it'll be June. So I'll update that for the next meeting and also have that June date on there as well. Do you have any questions for me about the status report or just project delivery, anything in particular?
I have a question about figure 7.
Yes.
Are we ever gonna implement or have something from the federal government that implements 2020 defined urban areas, census defined urban areas?
Glad you mentioned that. I totally meant to mention that. Yes, it's in the works. So TDOT has submitted the MPO urbanized boundaries to us, but we have to submit the entire state, so the small urban areas as well, at the same time as one big package. So TDOT right now is working with kind of more the RPOs, the rural planning organizations, to adjust the boundaries of those, 5,000 to 99,000 populations. So I think we're on track to probably have that done the summer, June-ish. We'll be able to submit that to our HQ office for review and approval. So I know it's a little bit delayed due to that having to be submitted as one big package. They won't look at just the MPOs.
I just think it's important to have it before we delve back into the regional transportation plan.
It'll definitely be updated, or yeah.
Our RPOs are meeting in May and June, and so we've got to get them to adopt there. We've tried to streamline the process. In the past, we've actually went out to each individual jurisdiction, and now we're doing them by RPO, kind of like you all do for your old MPO area. So we're doing them all by RPO, and they only meet twice a year, so we're kind of tied to all their meetings are set for May and June. So by the middle of June, we should have that completed and the packet over to Melanie and on to the next step to their headquarters. So
Thank you.
sir.
And I'll just say, Taylor is our resident project delivery expert, so I encourage you to reach out to him for any project needs you may have. The earlier we know about issues that you're having, the easier it'll be for us to try and figure it out. So take advantage of him when you can.
Please do.
Any questions for staff? No, hearing none. That concludes our regular reports. Moving on to other business. Does anybody else have any other business or announcements or anything like that that you want to bring here before the body? Hearing none. Okay. There's nothing else to come before the TCC. We're adjourned.
Please leave your name tags on the table.
Yeah.